Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 148 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast. I'm Christine.
And I'm Sam.
I rushed back to the Compassion and Cucumbers studio to record this episode. I've been out of town, house/cat sitting for my sister, who is in Oregon with her husband for a wedding. And so here I am.
Yes. And it's so nice. This is the first time I have seen Christine in a week.
I know.
It's crazy.
You missed me.
I did.
I missed you too.
It's a completely different place around here when you're not here.
Yeah, much less shenanigans.
Yeah, far fewer shenanigans. And also, it's just so strangely quiet.
I know. And, I feel the same way when you go someplace. It's not like either one of us are particularly noisy people.
Right.
But when the other one is gone, there is a strange hush in the house.
It really is weird.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know I've said before that it's difficult for me to get any actual alone time since you've retired.
Yeah.
I've learned that alone time is weird. It's just completely strange. It's not nearly as
it's not as fun as you thought it was going to be.
Not as fun or amazing as I thought it was going to be. I'm doing the same things that I would do while you were here, and it's just okay. Yeah, it's just weird. So It's really great to have you back in the house.
Yeah, I'm just here for the night, and then I have to head back out.
Yeah.
So
and then you'll come back on Friday.
Yeah, I'll be gone for another week, and you can enjoy your weird alone time.
It is. It's just super strange.
Yeah. What have you been, how have you been feeding yourself since I've been gone?
Oh, well, I've been feeding myself in pretty much the normal ways.
No. With a fork.
With a fork,
yeah.
with food, for sure. But no, I've been doing my usual thing. I've been doing salads, a lot of salads and sandwiches. I've made a new sandwich that I'm very, very fond of.
Ooh, do tell.
So I got some very nice bread. I was eating a lot of raw food, like just raw food at the beginning of the week. Mm-hmm. So a lot of salad, a lot of fruit, a lot of veggies and hummus. And then all of a sudden I just started craving sandwiches.
I can understand that.
Yeah. So I headed to the grocery store and I got a nice loaf of sandwich bread, like bakery sandwich bread. Mm-hmm. Similar to the stuff that we got when we did that chickpea salad sandwich.
Oh, okay.
That was nice bread.
That was some pretty good bread.
It was. So I got a half loaf of that, and I picked up some tofurkey, and I got some extra vegetables and things like that. And so now I've been doing this sandwich. I've actually had this same sandwich 3 times. Since you've been gone.
You, me? That's something I would do when you're out of town.
Well, but
I just make one thing and just eat that one thing.
Well, but when you do that, it's a tortilla with cheese.
Oh, yeah.
There's no effort involved.
Yeah, minimal effort for sure.
This is a little different. So what I've been doing is I take, 2 slices of the lovely bread, and I put just a tiny bit of vegan mayo on each piece of bread, and then I sprinkle it with a little bit of garlic powder. And then I put the tofurkey, and there was some shredded vegan mozzarella in the fridge.
Okay.
So I put a little bit of the shredded mozzarella on top of the tofurkey, and then I put that in the air fryer on the broil setting.
Oh, okay.
And let it broil for a little bit.
Yum.
And then I topped it with some tomatoes, some spinach, some cucumber, some avocado, and then the top slice of bread got a nice spreading of everything but everything bagel hummus.
Oh yeah, everything but the bagel hummus.
Yeah, everything bagel hummus. It's an Ithaca hummus, and I love Ithaca hummus like crazy. And it's really a pretty amazing combination.
Sounds good.
It's really good. So you get like a really nice crunch from the cucumber and creaminess from the hummus and the avocado, and you get a little bit of fat from the avocado, and you get your salt from the tofurkey, and sprouts. Lots of sprouts. A big layer of sprouts.
Yeah. Sprouts can really make a sandwich.
Oh, they so can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that sounds good.
Yeah. So I actually just had one of those today for lunch.
Oh, did you? Mm-hmm. I've been pretty good at my sister's. I myself also have had a few salads. I made salads with some tofu on top. And let's see, I made a big tofu scramble, which then I can make a couple of meals out of.
Right.
Do it just with toast for breakfast. Then I made a wrap with it one day. And then I did have a peanut butter sandwich one day.
Sure.
And a toasted cheese.
Okay.
So I, too, was resorting to sandwiches every once in a while. So,
well, I did do a couple of other things that I forgot to mention. I took, we had the sweet potato and kale taco recipe last week.
Yeah.
There's some leftover of that. So I took the sweet potato and kale mixture and some of the mango salsa, and I tossed that in a burrito with a bunch of veg.
that sounds good.
That was very good.
Yeah.
And then also I did a kind of an Asian bowl with ramen noodles
Oh, yeah.
one day. So
Yeah, I haven't
I've
done...
been trying to mix it up a little bit until I got to that sandwich. When I hit that sandwich, I think I've had one each of the last 3 days.
On my way home today, I stopped in Erie. They have a co-op there, a food co-op.
Love it.
They have a lovely little food cafe in their co-op with tons and tons of vegan options. And I got us what they call their zone wrap, and I got the avocado zone wrap. It's a lentil walnut meat, which they also make into a burger if you want a burger. It's really good.
So good.
An avocado and a bunch of veg so good.
Yeah. And we haven't had one, and it's inside of a wrap, like a whole wheat tortilla.
Yeah.
So it really was a treat. We haven't had one of those. Gosh, I bet it's been 1.5 years.
Yeah,
Easy.
it's been a long time.
Since we've had those.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have a lot of really great vegan options on their menu.
Yeah.
And they have vegan cheese, and you can make all of their wraps and sandwiches with tofu if you want. And yeah, really great little place. And ran into a friend of mine that works there. So that was fun. Got to see my friend Lee, who we both love.
We do.
And so then now here I am back in the old studio.
Indeed.
AKA our living room.
Indeed.
And I missed our furry people. I am watching 2 other furry people who are great. They're wonderful dudes, these 2.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They're super cool.
Yeah. And they're younger than ours. They're kind of crazy. There are lots of wrestling, knocking things over. I'm like, what was that? A lot of that going on. But I'm having a good time with them. So that's what we've been up to.
That's cool.
And we don't have a recipe this week because, I'm not here, and I didn't expect Sam to make a recipe for herself. Although you could have made that sandwich a recipe.
I totally could have, and maybe we will on a future episode.
Yeah.
But the other reason that I wasn't able to do a recipe today was we're in the midst of summer advising mode.
Right.
And so I'm meeting all of our new students who will be coming in to the department when the semester starts in August. And I meet with each of them for about an hour. And so today, my last meeting was at 4:00. And so I was assuming that I wouldn't be able to put dinner together before Christine got home.
Right. Yeah. Oh, we have some exciting news.
We do. And we can kind of consider this in lieu of the recipe.
In lieu of a recipe.
Yes.
Here's some exciting news that we got about the show.
Indeed. So FeedSpot recently announced, this was on July 11th, recently announced the 10 best vegan cooking podcasts. And these podcasts were chosen from thousands of podcasts on the web, and they were ranked by relevancy, authority, social media following, and freshness. And lo and behold, the Compassion and Cucumbers vegan podcast was ranked number 2.
Number 2, only below our friend Dustin Harder and his Keep On Cooking podcast. And if you like to listen to interviews with vegan chefs, that's what Dustin does. He takes a cookbook, he interviews the chef and the author of the cookbook. They go through the book, they talk about the recipes. It's a wonderful podcast.
It is.
So I am honored to be in the same company.
Seriously.
With Keep On Cooking. So yeah, number 2, baby.
Number 2.
I'll take it.
It's just so awesome.
Yeah. Congratulations.
And completely
to us.
unexpected. So that's amazing.
Yeah. And thank you listening, because without you, that wouldn't have happened.
That's right.
Thank you.
So thank
for
you,
that.
friends. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Let's jump into our noteworthy section.
Okay, let's do it.
More good news. Our noteworthy section this week is about a controversial mega dairy in Eastern Oregon that has been decommissioned, and we'll give you a little information as to why and what's going on with that dairy.
Indeed. This is coming from OPB News. This story was published by Alejandro Figueroa on July 8th, 2024. Regulators are seeking comments on site remediation at the still contaminated former site of Lost Valley Farm. A mega dairy site near Boardman, once plagued by a series of environmental violations and penalized with thousands of dollars in fines, is now less likely to ever become a dairy again.
Yay!
6 years after Lost Valley Farm in Eastern Oregon shut down following more than 200 violations, the farm's current owner, Canyon Farms, has asked to decommission the site as a confined animal feeding operation, or CAFO.
Yay again.
Indeed.
But unfortunately, here's why.
The area still remains contaminated, and agriculture regulators are seeking public comment as they look to remediate the site. The move is a win for environmental groups who've asked regulators for assurance the site will not be turned over to another dairy farm operator. In 2017, Lost Valley Farms received a CAFO permit from the Oregon Department of Agriculture and Department of Environmental Quality to house 30,000 dairy cows. But the owner at the time, Greg Tevelde, began housing cows before construction was finalized and before completing a waste management plan. The farm was soon cited for violating its CAFO permit, and a year later, ODA slapped Lost Valley with a $187,000 fine for overflowing manure lagoons and leaky waste storage, among other violations. Lost Valley later filed for bankruptcy. The site was eventually sold to Canyon Farms in 2023 after briefly being owned by Easter Day Dairy. But that operation shut down after it struggled to keep up with regulatory compliance. No animals have been permitted to be at the site since 2019. In April, Canyon Farms, which is managed by Fall Line Capital, a California-based venture capital firm, asked to decommission the site as a CAFO. As part of that process, the owners are required to remove all CAFO infrastructure like milking parlors, barns, and animal stalls, according to Isaac Stapleton, the director of the Natural Resources Program area at ODA. He confirmed the owners have already done that. They have decommissioned the facility, so the dairy operations, all of the equipment, animal stalls, and all that stuff has been removed from the site. Fall Line Capital did not respond to OPB's request for comment. While ODA has granted the request, 3 monitoring wells at the site still show elevated nitrate concentrations above background limits, or nitrate levels from before the site was permitted as a CAFO. Stapleton said the owner is required to bring the wells back into compliance and report monthly samples to ODA.
Yeah, let's hope that happens.
Yes, absolutely. He said it's hard to say why nitrate levels are still above background limits, but believes it's likely because of the manure spills from when it was managed by Lost Valley Farm.
Yeah, when nitrate levels are high like that, the land is basically dead.
Yes.
It won't support crop growth or natural growth even.
No, you can't. You can barely grow grass on it.
Yeah, and then those nitrates wash into the groundwater.
They certainly do.
And they choke out rivers and streams and kill fish, and it's a terrible thing.
That's right. And because of this, the farm is in what's known as the Lower Umatilla Basin Groundwater Management Area. This includes northern Morrow and Umatilla counties and the cities of Hermiston, Boardman, Irrigon, Stanfield, and Echo. For more than 30 years, the region's groundwater has been polluted with contaminants, primarily nitrates from irrigated agriculture. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, nitrate levels exceeding 10 milligrams per liter can cause serious health effects. This is an area where people are exposed to unsafe drinking water in part because factory farms and other big ag polluters are contributing nitrates to an already polluted aquifer. It doesn't make sense to allow a new source of nitrates into a groundwater management area.
And a lot of these CAFOs are built and operated in rural communities where the residents of those communities rely on well water for their water. And that's why these nitrates, among other things, among pesticides and all kinds of things in the farming industry that end up in the groundwater, are so very terrible.
Yes. ODA is requiring canyon farms to bring the monitoring wells below background limits. Yet Oregon has a self-imposed goal to bring nitrate levels in groundwater management areas to 7 milligrams per liter or less. The background limit for 2 of the wells on this property are 15 and 19 milligrams per liter, respectively. Remembering, of course, that 10 milligrams per liter can cause serious health effects.
Yeah. So, they're at seriously dangerous levels.
They need to require that the nitrates are lowered to a health-based limit of 7 milligrams per liter, not the so-called background levels that are currently in the plan. We want to see this actually achieve results that are safe for public health and those who might be impacted in their wells down gradient of this operation. ODA did not clarify why it's not requiring the owner to bring nitrate levels to safe drinking standards. And that is an interesting question.
Yeah.
Why isn't the owner being compelled to guarantee safe nitrate levels?
You're talking about that capital ventures company that owns the land? Yeah, that's a good question. My guess would be because they also have interests in a lot of other farms in the area and possibly other industries in this area, and they don't want them, they don't want to discourage them or give them reason to maybe pull out of the area. That would just be my guess. I'm just guessing.
Maybe, but still, I mean, and this is one of the issues I think that we face in society in general, where we're talking about a large venture capital company. And you're right, they may have interests in many operations in the area, but they also own this land. And the way that the land has been cared for, or not been cared for, more to the point, now has the potential to poison people, essentially. Yeah. So doesn't it make sense that the owner of the land, this isn't public land,
right? That
the owner of the land would be held in some way, shape, or form responsible.
Yeah, and I think they are held responsible, but the only way they can hold them responsible is by continually fining them, which means nothing.
Yeah.
They'll just keep paying those fines because the cost of rectifying this nitrate situation on this land it will far exceed what the fines will be.
It's just like oil companies and oil spills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a land-based version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the state of Oregon is seeking written public comments for input on a proposed remedial groundwater cleanup plan for the site. And comments on that plan are due by July 19th.
Yeah, so I think ultimately it's going to fall on the taxpayers of Oregon to help clean up this land.
Well, there's a surprise.
Yeah. It always comes back around. It always comes back around. People will say the government's going to have to pay for it. Well, when they say the government's going to have to pay for it, that means us.
It really does.
That means tax dollars.
Yep.
That means property taxes will go up in the area so that they can, afford to fix this land so that it's habitable, so that the people that live in this area have drinkable water. So while this is good news that they're not going to reopen a CAFO on this property.
Yes, that's certainly a step in the right direction.
It's bad news for the people that live in this area, and hopefully the people that live in that area will be vocal enough to, get some movement.
Yes.
In the right direction.
Surrounding
here.
the cleanup and ensuring that their drinking water is in fact safe.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think it is going to ultimately fall on the taxpayers, so the people that live there are going to end up paying for it.
Per usual.
Yeah. Let's move on to our main topic. This week's main topic is why the animal liberation movement must also liberate workers.
I love this because this is one of those things that when we talk about veganism from an ethical standpoint and we talk about the animal liberation movement, all too often the workers who are, for lack of a better term, trapped in this system are being exploited.
Absolutely. And another reason why we want to talk about this is because so many times vegans are accused of caring only for animals and not for human beings. And we want to make it clear to everybody that A, that's not the case, and B, give you a little information on how we can help liberate the workers in the animal ag industry.
That's right. So this is coming from nonprofitquarterly.org, and the article that we are looking at is Why the Animal Liberation Movement Must Liberate Workers Too, written by Zane McNeil and published on June 27th, 2024. According to the 2022 Agriculture Census from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, 24,000 factory farms in the United States currently raise 1.7 billion animals a year in concentrated animal feeding operations. This marks a 6% increase since 2016 and an almost 50% rise over the past 20 years.
Yeah, every time I see that figure, that 50% rise in animals being raised for food, it's just, wow, it's kind of heartbreaking.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's because global demand just keeps increasing. Not only are these animals housed in extremely inhumane conditions, which harms animal immune systems and endangers public health, but factory farms also exacerbate climate change and violate labor rights. While the COVID-19 pandemic made visible the racism, abuse, and unsafe working conditions experienced by meatpacking workers, these issues existed long before the pandemic and continue to deteriorate. The intersection of animal and human well-being makes it imperative for animal welfare advocates to build solidarity with workers to achieve liberation for both human and non-human animals.
Yeah, like slaughterhouse workers and meatpacking workers, for instance.
Exactly. Slaughterhouse and meatpacking workers are chronically underpaid. Annual wages average $28,450. Just above the federal poverty line for a family of 4, despite these jobs being highly dangerous. Although, first of all, can we say $28,450 is the poverty line for a family of 4?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
It's above the poverty line for a family of 4. How can a family of 4 live on $28,000?
They can't. There's no way.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way.
It would be next to impossible. There's no way that these people don't have second and third jobs.
Yes.
And their spouses have 1 or 2 jobs.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the way poverty is, I don't know, classified, I guess.
Right.
In this country is absurd to the point of being sick.
Oh, it is absurd. Definitely.
Yes. It's just insane. On top of this, employees are regularly denied bathroom breaks and, if they are undocumented, are threatened with deportation when they voice concerns. They often face emotional abuse and humiliation from managers. Perhaps unsurprisingly, workers in this sector are predominantly Black and Latinx, and many are immigrants and refugees. Only around 25% of them reside in households where all members aged 14 or above are proficient in English. Immigration status, English proficiency level, and economic precarity make these workers extremely exploitable. Past investigations into meatpacking plants have underscored how companies consistently prioritize profits over safety and worker health. Increasing line speeds, in which workers are pressured to kill more animals in less time, along with long hours and repetitive motions, significantly increase the risk of injury. As a result, workers often experience chronic pain in their hands, wrists, arms, shoulders, and back. Under the intense pace at which most facilities operate, repetitive stress injuries become inevitable, according to the Food Empowerment Project. In fact, according to the Food Chain Workers Alliance, 65% of meatpacking and food processing workers have experienced job-related injuries. Additionally, data reported to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration in 2015 indicated that amputations and hospitalizations are common at Tyson Food meatpacking plants, although the FEP says that the rate of workplace injuries may be much higher because of a culture of underreporting.
Underreporting the injuries, and a lot of those workers are afraid to report injuries.
Of course.
For fear of losing their jobs or deportation.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Children have increasingly been victims of this industry. In 2023, the U.S. Department of Labor found 5,792 instances of children being illegally employed, an 88% increase since 2019. Many of these incidents included employing children to clean slaughterhouse facilities, including dangerous kill floor equipment such as head splitters, jaw pullers, meat bandsaws, and neck clippers. All of this in violation of federal law.
And I would assume that that number is also higher than reported?
I have no trouble believing that at all.
Yeah.
Yes.
5,792 instances were found, but I'm sure, and I would almost bet that that number is double.
Probably. And again, it's highly likely that most of those children are also children of immigrants.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and perhaps not surprisingly, numerous incidents have led to fatalities. In July 2023, at least 3 children died from work-related injuries at U.S. animal slaughter facilities. One of these tragic cases involved 16-year-old Duvon Tomas Perez, who died at a Mississippi poultry plant after being trapped in conveyor belt equipment. His death led OSHA and the Department of Labor to investigate the incident, which marked the plant's second fatality in 2 years.
And let me just remind you that there are some people on the right side of the aisle in Washington that are attempting to relax child labor laws and lower the age at which children can work in these facilities.
Yes.
Vote with your ethics, people.
Earlier in February 2023, a DOL wage and hour division investigation revealed that over 100 children were illegally employed in hazardous jobs. Packers Sanitation Services, Inc., one of the nation's largest food safety sanitation companies, was found to have employed children at 13 meat processing facilities in 8 states, including those of Tyson Foods, JBS Foods, and Cargill. Many of these minors worked in dangerous occupations and routinely had to work overnight shifts. The DOL fined Packers Sanitation Services, Inc. over $1.5 million for violating the Fair Labor Standards Act by employing 102 children illegally. The fine of $15,138 per minor illegally employed was the maximum allowed by law. But for a company that is worth close to $1 billion, the fine is a minor cost of doing business.
Yeah, so they'd rather have children working overnight shifts in their facilities and risk this ridiculously low fine than gainfully employ people and pay them a living wage.
Yes.
Children who have to get up in the morning and go to school. These people are it's just evil.
You're not wrong. Throughout the industry, child labor appears to be on the rise. In fact, the DOL reports that child labor incidents have increased by 69% between 2018 and 2022.
This next section of this article is very interesting to me.
Yeah, I find this fascinating too.
Yeah.
So let's dive right in. The heading of this particular section is Necropolitics, Speciesism, and carceral capitalism.
Carceral capitalism. In other words, legal slavery,
Yes.
right?
Essentially.
Legal incarceration.
Yes. Necropolitics refers to using social and political power to determine who lives, who dies, and how someone should live or die. In Zombification, Social Death, and the Slaughterhouse, U.S. Industrial Practices of Livestock Slaughter, S. Marek Muller, building on the work of political theorist Achille Mbembe, describes necropolitics as the state's ability to render certain bodies killable, such as by designating enslaved people as chattel to strip them of their personhood and legal rights to life and liberty. Muller uses the term zombification to express the social process in which one becomes socially dead, physically, psychologically, and culturally. Muller explores how the non-human animal agriculture industry not only places animals in the role of the ideal socially dead subject, the chattel slave, but also animalizes the human workers. In other words, under racial and carceral capitalism, necropolitics renders non-human animals as slaughterable, while humans are viewed as animals. Racial capitalism, a term developed by the late Black Marxist scholar Cedric Robinson, posits that racialized exploitation and capital accumulation are mutually reinforcing. Similarly, scholars like Jackie Wang have asserted that racial capitalism is deeply entangled with carceral systems which are shaped by and work in tandem with the imperatives of global capitalism. In this context, a carceral and racial capitalism framework allows us to consider how this system transforms human and non-human bodies into commodities, whose labor is consumed and capitalized upon by the elite class.
Eat the rich.
That's an oversimplification, but
Yes.
okay.
Hashtag eat the rich.
One example of this occurred in April 2020, when managers at Tyson Foods organized a winner-take-all betting poll, wagering on how many employees at a meatpacking plant in Waterloo, Iowa, would contract COVID-19.
Does anybody remember this? This was in the news during the height of the pandemic, that there was at Tyson Foods this poll going on. They were actually doing it like a football poll.
Yeah.
It's obscene.
Yes.
Obscene.
As the virus devastated the meatpacking industry that month, Tyson officials chose to keep the Waterloo plant open. Ultimately, an outbreak infected over 1,000 workers. Company-wide at Tyson, by May 2020, 4,600 workers were infected by the virus and 18 had died. As Muller explains, embedded deeply within this necropolitical, racial, and carceral capitalist system is speciesism, the assumption that individuals deemed fully or solidly human are superior to othered individuals, both human and non-human, who are deemed animals. Speciesism is inherently hierarchical and simultaneously justifies the exploitation of non-human animals and animalized humans, rendering their suffering relatively invisible and unquestioned. Industrial agriculture relies on the entanglement of speciesism with white supremacy and racial capitalism, which depend on the hierarchized relationship between race, animality, and humanity.
Yeah, and that's why you will hear so many Black vegan activists talk about the intertwinedness, which I know is not a word, of speciesism and racism.
Yes. There's not a whole lot to separate them.
No.
No. If you can exploit based on species, it's actually a pretty small step to take to exploit based on race.
Obviously.
Yes. As Sil Coe explores in Afroism, Essays on Pop Culture, Feminism, and Black Veganism from Two Sisters, humanness is a certain way of being, especially exemplified by how one looks or behaves, what practices are associated with one's community, and so on. This means that the conceptions of humanity/human and animality/animal have been constructed along racial lines. Similarly, racism's ontological plasticity, as posited by Zakiya Jackson in Becoming Human, Matter and Meaning in an Anti-Black World, renders one's humanity provisional. In other words, white supremacy constructs and relies on a social malleability of racialized people and its entanglements with surveillance, control, and carcerality to extract capital from its laborers. In the racial capitalist landscape, meatpacking workers experience ontological plasticity, being simultaneously human and non-human. Human as legal employees of a company, and non-human as killable commodities.
Yeah, so if you've ever thought that in your job you could be easily replaced, imagine how these workers feel when their employers really don't care if they live or die.
No, but I mean, not only that, okay, yes, all of this is absolutely horrific. There's no two ways about it. But this isn't even talking about the mental health impacts that these workers experience doing these incredibly violent jobs day after day after day. It's well known that it's very rare for anyone to last in the meatpacking industry for more than a year.
They have a huge turnover and a very high suicide rate also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, how could there not be?
Right.
Because I'm sorry, I guarantee you that the vast majority of people who get into this particular line of work are doing it out of desperation. They're not doing it because they want to go in and kill animals. Now let's talk about carceral veganism.
Yeah, and the need to move away from it.
Indeed. The animal advocacy movement has a history of relying on carceral veganism, which Riley Claire Valentine defines as a form of veganism which uses the state to protect animals through forms of violence in which workers at meatpacking plants are at high risk of both imprisonment as well as potential deportation. This often takes the form of raids on facilities. Not only do these raids, often carried out by immigration and customs enforcement officials, harm those targeted, but they have allowed the meat companies to blame a couple of quote-unquote bad apples and avoid being held accountable for systemic harm to animals, workers, and the environment. Similarly, Haley Huguet in Current Affairs has criticized the animal advocacy movement for implementing carceral vegan tactics to treat workers in animal agriculture as scapegoats.
Yeah, so let's just remember that if you're in a position where you are advocating for animal liberation, for veganism, not to push it to the point where we're blaming the people that are victims of the system.
That's right.
Right?
Yes. We absolutely cannot blame the workers for simply attempting to survive and to provide for their families in, honestly, an incredibly minimal way, given the danger and the violence that is associated with this work.
Yeah. They're not the enemy.
No. The pursuit of animal liberation calls for a critical interrogation of how best to liberate the human and non-human animal victims of this industry, how to problematize processes of dehumanization and animalization. This process must also involve a critical interrogation of how animal liberationists themselves animalize other humans, such as slaughterhouse workers, specifically to deny them empathy, concern, and moral consideration.
Yeah, so if you're ever having conversations with fellow vegans and fellow animal advocates, and you ever come across someone who is, like I was saying, maybe placing the blame on people that are forced to work in this industry, please correct them.
Yes.
Please make an effort to express to them that they need to have empathy for these people.
Yes. I mean, can any of us say that if we were in a similar situation, that we wouldn't do the same thing? That if a job in a meatpacking plant was the only choice to make between life and death, or putting dinner on the table for your children or not, that you wouldn't do it?
Yeah, ask yourself those questions.
I think it's really, really important that we consider these things.
Yeah.
Because it is all too easy to say, oh, well, the people who work in these plants are part of the problem. No, they're not. They're victims just as much as the animals are.
Yeah.
Every bit as much as the animals are.
Yeah, they're victims of a cruel capitalistic society that we're living in.
Yes. The animal advocacy movement stands at a pivotal juncture. Meat consumption is at an all-time high, and the movement has alienated various communities by championing the rights of non-human beings while overlooking the needs of marginalized human populations. This has resulted at times in a focus on alleviating the suffering of animals at the expense of marginalized communities, and at its worst, collaborating with the carceral system to the detriment of vulnerable meat industry workers. The authors in Building Multi-Species Resistance Against Exploitation address this theme as well. Huget, for her part, calls on the animal advocacy movement to build solidarity between the animal advocacy and labor movements and transform non-human animal liberation from a single cause into a mass movement that incorporates tactics that also use worker power, community power, and citizen power.
This is what we have to do. We do have to, this veganism and animal liberation advocacy has to be a wheel in a cog, in a larger wheel of causes that we need to be supporting.
Yes. Yes. This is a social justice movement like any other.
Right.
The only substantive difference between all social justice movements is who is the community in power and who is being othered.
Right.
When we're talking feminism, we're looking at men, women. When we're talking about anti-racism, we're talking largely, though not exclusively, about white, black. When we're talking about homophobia or heterosexism, we're talking about straight, queer. When we talk about education level, we're talking about educationism, those with college degrees versus those without. And the list goes on and on and on and on.
Right. Now, I mean, I know it can be exhausting considering fighting for every one of these causes, but I think all it really takes is to have empathy for every social cause.
Yes.
And do what you can to support those causes.
And to accept.
Within your own movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to accept first and foremost that there is absolutely no need for othering.
Right.
We don't need to be a society in which one group gains power by subjugating another group. This is not essential. Or at the very least, it's not essential in economic systems outside of capitalism.
Correct. Correct.
This is what capitalism is based on.
Yeah, and this is why capitalism has ruined societies throughout millennia.
Yes. And why it's slowly starting to die.
Yeah. People wake up to the fact that they're spending their lives making other people rich and having to work till they die because there's no safety net.
That's right.
Or people wake up to the fact that they are being considered an other. Mm-hmm. And I think it's time to put an end to it.
To all of it. I completely agree. Now, Huget suggests that this could look like rallying voters behind bills such as the Farm System Reform Act, or organizing within workplaces and communities affected by the meat industry to pave the way for actions like strikes and boycotts. This alternative approach to non-human animal liberation helps establish tangible links with other movements advocating for institutional abolition, such as those aimed at police or prison abolition and the dismantling of immigration enforcement agencies like Immigration and Customs Enforcement. While some in the animal advocacy movement have been hesitant to adopt Huget's approach, there is tangible progress. Will Boisseau, for example, points to the labor rights organization Venceremos, which organized the first strike of poultry workers in Arkansas. Magali Likali, a co-founder of the group, told Boisseau that the struggle should be unified. Boisseau also points to the Animal Legal Defense Fund's July 2020 whistleblower campaign and Food and Water Watch's complaint to the Federal Trade Commission regarding worker safety at Tyson. Additional examples come from the Food Empowerment Project and Apex Advocacy. These groups, both BIPOC-led, work toward the liberation of non-human animals within a social justice frame, prioritizing the needs of those most impacted by systemic oppression. Apex, in particular, has published statements calling out the animal advocacy movement for dehumanizing slaughterhouse workers, being shaped by sexist culture, and protecting men in the movement who engage in sexual misconduct, and more recently, remaining silent on the current genocide in Palestine. Solidarity campaigns bringing together workers and animal rights will not be easy to build, Boisseau warns. However, examples like those above show that solidarity is possible. By building power with labor rights organizations like Venceremos, the goal of animal and human liberation becomes far more attainable.
And if learning all of this makes you excited to get more involved in these movements, we strongly urge you to go to the Food Empowerment Project and Apex Advocacy websites. They both have wonderful resources and many calls to action that you can follow regarding farm worker rights and things like this.
Absolutely.
So definitely check those websites out. I guess we'll move on to our assignment, Restaurant SOS.
This week, Michelle Valdina nominated Strong Hearts.
Yay!
Yay! Strong Hearts is a favorite of ours, so we're very happy that they're on the list. With locations in Syracuse and Buffalo, this beloved New York vegan eatery provides some of the best fast casual food in the state, providing delicious vegan food since 2008 in Syracuse and expanding to their Buffalo location in 2022. Both locations have a bright and airy atmosphere with animal and vegan advocacy posters to remind you of their ethical position in the vegan movement. Strong Hearts was built upon the vegan ethics of animal, earth, and human liberation, and is co-owned and co-founded by Joel Capolongo and Nicholas Ryan. You can find them in Syracuse at 315 Irving Avenue, Syracuse, New York, 13210, and in Buffalo at 295 Niagara Street, Buffalo, New York, 14201.
And let's take a look at Strong Heart's menu.
This is always a pleasure.
We are a little familiar here with Strong Heart's menu.
But this is actually getting me really excited because I have a lunch date at Strong Heart's Buffalo in like 3 weeks.
You do?
I do.
Lucky.
I know, right?
Lucky, lucky, lucky. Of course, they have lots of starters and fries, loaded fries, smack fries, all kinds of fries. Their nachos are awesome. We love their nachos.
Oh, the nachos are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a really great mac and cheese. They have buffalo mac and cheese. They have a Wild West mac and cheese that has tempeh bacon, barbecue sauce, and jalapenos with French fried onions. Yeah, that's good.
Good stuff.
They have a hot honey, HUNNY.
Of course.
Mac and cheese. It's pasta shells, house cashew cheese sauce, house hot honey sauce, chicken tenders, and scallions. What else? Oh, they have chicken wings.
For me, though, I have to say Strong Hearts is all about the sandwiches.
The sandwiches, their sandwich menu is fantastic. And they also have specials that you should keep your eye on if you're in either the Syracuse or Buffalo area. My favorite, of course, is their Reuben, which is fantastic. It's a thin sliced house seitan with sauerkraut, vegan mozzarella, and their Thousand Island dressing on buttered toasted rye bread. It is so good.
It is very, very good. You are also a big fan of their egg trick muffin.
Egg trick muffin, yeah, I can't go wrong there if you want a breakfast sandwich.
And I have tried almost all of the sandwiches on their menu between Buffalo and Syracuse. Not all of them, but I'm getting close. And some of my favorites are the sweet sassy molassie.
That's a classic.
It is. It's just a fantastic sandwich. It's grilled maple chipotle tofu, avocado, grilled red onion, tomato, lettuce, chipotle aioli on stretch bread. It's absolutely fantastic. I also really love, because I used to be a fan of a good fried chicken sandwich pre-veganism.
Yeah.
I love their chicken bacon ranch. So this is fried chicken tenders, tempeh bacon, red onion, lettuce, tomato, and ranch, again on stretch bread. And I have to say also, their buffalo Philly cheesesteak.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't think.
It's fantastic.
Grilled seitan, cheddar cheese, grilled peppers and onions, banana peppers, buffalo wing sauce, and ranch. Again, so good. Really, really decadent, but decadent in a way that I always leave going, oh, that was satisfying, but I don't feel uncomfortably full.
Yeah.
Whereas if I had a fried chicken sandwich or a buffalo Philly cheesesteak that was actually animal flesh, I'd probably be hurting for a little while afterwards. And that's just not the case here. So
yeah, they also have burgers. They've recently introduced their own house-made garden burger.
Yep.
I've heard really good things about it. They have a whole list of their fried vegan chicken sandwiches. Mm-hmm. They have the hot honey fried chicken, the sassy fried chicken, the buffalo fried chicken, the barbecue fried chicken, every fried chicken sandwich you could imagine. They have tons of salads. Their salads are really great. I love their Thai tofu salad. We love Strong Hearts.
We really do. And the thing is also, if you're the kind of vegan that craves a milkshake every now and again, Strong Hearts is the place to be. Now, we have not yet tried a milkshake from Strong Hearts.
We haven't.
And we've been going to Strong Hearts since they opened in 2022. So for a full 2 years, we've been visiting. And we never prioritize a milkshake.
No, and they have 20 different milkshake flavors.
Oh, it's at least 30.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
at least
amazing.
30. It's really quite amazing. And so one of these days, I have a feeling we're going to break down and actually do a milkshake.
Yeah.
And also one of the things we do whenever we go to Strong Hearts, they have some wonderful baked goods, particularly their cupcakes are just fantastic. And even though we never quite have room for dessert while we're there, we'll usually take some cupcakes home with us.
Yeah, we usually take something home from the baking case.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like I said, if you're in the Syracuse or Buffalo area, make sure you check out Strong Hearts. Bring your friends, bring your family, support them because they are supporting us.
That's right.
They're supporting the movement.
They sure are.
In every way.
And we want to keep them strong.
Yeah. And that brings us to our favorite portion of the show.
Must be listener shout out time.
It's listener shout out.
Just want to give a shout out to all my fans watching. I love you guys. I love you.
This week's listener shout out goes to Hillary White. Hillary is a recent subscriber to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Hillary, for subscribing and for listening to the show.
Yeah, and send us your t-shirt size and address so we can send you a Compassion and Cucumbers swag bag. You can either text us that information using the link at the top of our show notes or email us at compassionandcucumbers@gmail.com or simply DM us on Instagram or Facebook.
And for the rest of you out there, we really still need more entries for shout-outs.
Keep them coming.
That's right. So if you want a listener shout-out, please text, email, or DM Christine. Let us know what you think of the show and tell us a little bit about yourselves. You can also nominate your favorite vegan for a shout-out.
Yeah, and don't forget that a shout-out enters you into our Meeson Chef Knife giveaway later this year.
Don't want to miss out on that.
No, you want to get your hands on that chef knife. Mm-hmm. Carefully. It is a knife, after all.
Fair point.
Let's talk about our vegan org of the week. This week's vegan org of the week is Vegan Forum.
Vegan Forum provides free-to-access vegan community for support, recipes, health and travel advice, activism, products, and more. All things vegan in one elegant forum. They are a valuable resource to vegans looking for community and support, and you can check them out at veganforum.org.
Yeah, if you don't have a vegan community in your area, Vegan Forum is a great place to go where you can meet vegans online and talk about all things veganism.
Indeed.
And with that, we will wrap up. Please join the Agriculture Fairness Alliance's Vegan Voter Hub. The link is always in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app and subscribe to our YouTube and leave us a rating and a review. If you feel like you want to support the show, join our Patreon community. You get access to all the recipes from our Vegan Kitchen series, and we're working on more patron-exclusive content. And don't forget, you can text us using that link at the top of our show notes. You can text show ideas, recipes, cookbook recommendations. Just text.
And with that, it's time to sign off. You have just listened to episode 148 of the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, and there's nothing left to say but where cukes and compassion are always the fashion on the podcast.
Thanks, James.
Have a great week, everyone.
We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
We love you.
Oh, one little thing before we leave.
Really?
I just want to remind people that next Saturday, we will be in Syracuse at a fundraiser for Briarwood Farm Sanctuary in Syracuse.
We sure will.
Watch our socials for all the deets.
Indeed.
And with that, bye-bye!
The end.
If you'd like to support the Compassion and Cucumbers podcast, well, you can do that by hopping on over to our Patreon page and becoming a patron. We have all the recipes from our Vegan Kitchen series up there, and we'll be adding some patron-only episodes in the near future. So thank you for supporting us at whatever level that you choose, and thank you again for listening to Compassion and Cucumbers podcast.